One of the most preferable ways to answer those questions is to read the last line in the beginning. Based on this information, the variable overhead spending variance for JoyT for this year was. He is asking for variable overhead spending variance, which can be calculated from the following graph. This graph is talking about above the line I drew. I'm talking about variable overhead, and under the line, I'm talking about fixed overhead. Okay. He is asking for spending variable overhead. The spending variable overhead is the difference between budgeted amount here and actual amount here. So we will concentrate when reading the question above on the data concerning variable overhead only. Okay. The JoyT Company manufactures Maxi Dolls for sale in toy stores. In planning for this year, JoyT estimates variable overhead estimated variable overhead and planning, another word that indicating that we are talking about the budgeted amount of the variable overhead is 600,000. I write here 600,000, which is budgeted amount. And fixed factory overhead will be ignored because I'm asking below about the variable overhead spending variance, variable, and this is fixed, so I'll ignore that amount. JoyT uses standard costing system, and factory overhead is allocated to units produced on basis of standard direct labor hours. When we are allocating the cost, we use direct labor hours, which is the denominator level of the activity budgeted for this year is 10,000. So 10,000 direct labor hours will be used to allocate the cost. All right, here, 10,000 hours, direct labor hours multiplied by, I don't know, is equal to 600,000. Okay. Now you can see that actual quantity of outputs multiplied by budgeted cost driver is equal to 10,000 direct labor hours. I can calculate now the budgeted rate. While the actual direct labor hours was 10,300, which is actual quantity here. Actual quantity multiplied by actual cost driver. So I write here 10,300. Also, I'll write there 10,300. Okay. Based on the output accomplished during this year, 9,900 standard direct labor hours should have been used. This amount is used in this equation, should be written here, 9,900, which is budgeted quantity and budgeted cost driver, which will not be used in answering our question. Also, actual variable factory overhead is 596,000, which is the result of this equation. 596,000. Okay. So I can calculate the actual rate. If he asked me for. And the actual fixed overhead, I can ignore. It's useless. So I reached the question. Based on this information, the variable overhead spending variance. Okay. I need to calculate budgeted rate because I need it here. So I'll divide it 600,000 by 10,000 direct labor hours, which will result in $60 per hour, which I'll use here, $60 per hour. So I can calculate the budgeted variable overhead, which will be equal to 10,300 multiplied by 60 equal to 618 And here the amount is 596,000. So the spending variance is the difference between those two amounts, which is this amount and this amount. On the calculator, 618 minus 596,000 is equal to 22,000, which is favorable variance because the actual amount was less than the budgeted amount. So the amount will be, or the answer will be 22,000 favorable.